we're noisemakers. And we do that because not because we're tooting our own horn, but I think because we see the value in what's available. And in my opinion, and I've said this, I don't know, I can't even count how many times I've said this, and I will say it probably countless more times, which is that women's soccer and women's soccer specifically, but I think women in sports as a whole are the greatest, deepest, richest well of talent, intellect, and future forward thinking that we have. There's nothing that's more untapped and more ready to make a difference than women in sports.
The Players Pod is proud to be sponsored by longtime partner WIS. As your go-to accounting and growth partner, WIS understands the power of teamwork, and they're ready to take your business to the next level. To learn more about how WIS can help you succeed, head over to WIS.com. That's WISS.com to accelerate your company's journey today. What is up, everyone? Welcome to the Players Pod, where I get to sit down and talk to some of the biggest names in sports about the untold stories behind their success. I'm Kelley O'Hara, and on today's episode, we are joined by none other than Brandi Chastain. Brandi Chastain is one of the most accomplished U.S. women's national team players to ever hit the pitch. Her iconic World Cup winning penalty and subsequent celebration made Brandi a household name in 1999, but her career was so much more than just that one shot. A two-time World Cup champion and Olympic gold medalist, Brandi recorded 192 caps with the national team and was named to the USWNT's all-time best 11 in 2013. After retiring from playing, Brandi has remained active in her sport as a youth coach, and she continues to inspire the next generation. Brandi, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so very much. It's good to be here.
As I was preparing for this interview, I was like, if my 12-year-old self knew that I was about to sit down and interview Brandi Chastain about her career and life and the things that she has done that I watched unfold as a kid, like I wish I knew that I'd be sitting here today with you. Like it is a pinch me moment. So I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you for coming on. I'm really excited to go through your career and talk about all the things that you accomplish and the ups, the downs, all that good stuff. But I first want to start with earlier this year, the Players Association of the NWSL passed the league's first ever collective bargaining agreement. And it's a really big milestone for the league, for women's soccer in America. And you were also a part of a lot of milestones, which we're going to go into a bunch of them. But I'm curious, are you impressed or disappointed by how far women's soccer has come since you were a player?
Honestly, sometimes I'm a little bit speechless because I was literally writing a card to a girl, a high school freshman, who at her all-girls school, they do a Women of Impact Day. And each freshman has to create a place setting. And it could be any woman in any genre. And this young gal did a place setting of me and the women's national team. And she made this beautiful plate and, all these, a World Cup trophy and a medal and an Atlanta, like your Atlanta hat. And, and so I wrote her a letter to say that when I began this journey, I had no idea where it was leading me. I literally thought that the end of it was walking the 2 blocks to the elementary school for practice, going down to the other elementary school to kick the ball against the wall by myself because there was no one to play with. And the weekends where I literally drove across the Golden Gate Bridge from down in the South San Jose area. And I literally thought I had crossed the world. And then that was the end, right? And I mean, that was my world. And so when you ask me the question, I think back to my 8, 9, 10-year-old self, I think I had no idea how monumental and immense women's soccer would be. And yet I feel we're just at the beginning with what has been accomplished this year in 2022. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of me that says we have a lot to do, but I am also incredibly proud and humbled and honored of what we have done so far.
I love that. And it is interesting. That's such a good way to put it, that that was your world and that's all you really knew. And to think how widespread and how far you went just because of the sport is cool to look back on. When you guys were forming the league in '99 after the World Cup.
Yeah, 2001. 2001.
Oh, it didn't start until 2001.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it started in 2000. All right, so 2001. So in 2000, you're forming the league.
Yep.
Would you say, like, what were your expectations of where we would be now with the league?
I think that's a good question, because I think it depends on how you attack it, right? So if you were the league office, they attacked it like, hey, we're on Fifth Avenue in New York City.
Yeah.
We're next door neighbors to the NFL. We're spending a shit ton of money on an office because we want to belong, right? So
is that actually where the league's office was?
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. So, we knew we had something. That's never been the problem, right?
Yeah.
The problem has never been, are there players to sustain a league? Are there players to create a noise in the space of professional sports? Are there enough people out there who want to see this talent? Of course, that's a given. It's existed. It was, where do we fit in the space and how do we fit in the space? And kind of what we are experiencing now still is, how do we disrupt a culture that has been systematically not for us? And so, I think initially we were just like, hey, we're going to do this, like, let's go. Like how we always are, we just like, hey, we see that thing and we want it and we're going to go and get it. And so I think there was a lot of bumps in the road and a lot of lessons learned and a lot of things that I think the NWSL now has the benefit of knowing that we didn't know. And just like anything, I mean, experience is the best teacher.
For sure.
Right. And so again, the talent was always there. We had the best players in the world coming to the US to play in our league. And it was phenomenal. And I'm happy to say that my team was the first ever champions of the WUSA.
Nice.
So first ever women's professional champions in the US were the Bay Area Cyber Rays.
That's a great title to own.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm curious why you think, and I think you kind of touched on it, but why do you think this league the NWSL has survived? Again, for listeners, this is the third iteration of a women's professional league in the US. When the NWSL started, I was like, well, third time's a charm, guys. Like, it's got to be, we got to make this last. But why do you think this league has survived where others have failed?
Well, I'm going to say that the others, I think we could say failed, or we can say just built a foundation, right? So
that's great. I like that.
Yeah, because again, I think the experiences that were had in the two previous leagues were the founding blocks for what the NWSL is. Again, you look at, I look at the NBA, I look at NFL in particular, and I say they weren't successful either in the beginning.
Oh, I know. That's what everyone forgets.
Yeah. So it's easy to look at what's happening now and say, boy, this is so much better than what it was. Well, this wouldn't happen today if it was starting all over. So I think we all start from these humble beginnings, and we all have to learn the lessons, and they were hard. They were hard lessons. And again, I think it's to the point of what the U.S. women's national team was, and what I think the U.S. women's national team today continues to be, not just for a domestic impact, but a global impact now, is that we have been disruptors of cultural norms for 4+ decades.
You're right.
And so, and some people would say that in a negative way, and others would say that in a completely positive way. We're noisemakers. And we do that because not because we're tooting our own horn, but I think because we see the value in what's available. And in my opinion, and I've said this, I don't know, I can't even count how many times I've said this, and I will say it probably countless more times, which is that women's soccer and women's soccer specifically, but I think women in sports as a whole are the greatest, deepest, richest well of talent, intellect, and future forward thinking that we have. There's nothing that's more untapped and more ready to make a difference than women in sports.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I love that. And I've never heard somebody say it in that way, and I love exactly how you put it. And I absolutely agree. You're coaching girls now, and it's a completely different landscape than when you grew up playing, you know, going down the street, kicking the ball against the wall by yourself. What do you think, or what do you see as the biggest difference in your generation of players and youth players today?
Well, I think number one, you just have to, the broad pool of players is greater. So I think, you know, with Title IX, I was born in 1968. So I'm constantly pushing on my players, Title IX, Title IX, Title IX. You need to understand where you come from. You need to understand that this wasn't always possible. So when you come to practice and you're wasting your own time, or maybe the time of your teammates, or you're not seeing the significance of the opportunity, remember when young girls did not have a chance to play. So that's not a kind of like, hey, like run in straight lines and be mechanical. It's just like, remember, like this is a precious gift that we get to do to be players. And don't ever forget that. And don't take it for granted. And that's really important. So I think the greater population of young girls also have now resources. So when I was growing up, my dad, who never played soccer, never saw soccer, became my coach, because no one would step up to say, okay, I'll be the coach, or I have some experience. Nobody did. And so I basically learned soccer by the one VHS tape that was in the library, and maybe the 3 soccer books that were in the library. And every Sunday was a program called Soccer Made in Germany. And we would watch that. And so that's how we learned the basics about soccer. And then we became season ticket holders for the San Jose Earthquakes in the mid-70s when I was 8 years old. And so seeing soccer, I think as a resource now, young girls can not only go on their phone, not only go to their computer, not only find a high school girls soccer game, a college girls women's soccer game, or a professional women's soccer game, but a national team game. They have so many more resources that exist than ever before. Now, the fallacy about that, Kelley, is that that's going to make you better. The only thing that's going to make each one of these kids better is their desire and their willingness to play. Yeah, and absolutely. To fall down flat on their damn faces and say it's okay. Yeah. Because you could, as the old saying goes, you probably never heard this because you're too young. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Yeah.
I'm not too old. I'm not too young. I am old.
Yeah. So I think resources, I think the population, the pool of players is greater. The opportunities with a national team now, when I was growing up, it was one team or no team. These are all wonderful opportunities, but they're all also they're also difficult, right, to navigate, because again, the naivete that I came to soccer with was, I love playing. I'm going to go down I don't have anyone to play with because nobody's as into it as I am. So I'm going down to the school and I'm going to kick the ball against the wall because that was my outlet. that was my only way of doing it. My mom didn't want me to kick the ball against the garage door, so I had to go down to the school. But now there's just, it's a professional trainer and a professional coach, and these are great things. Listen, I shouldn't bite the hand that feeds me, right? But it's a tricky situation, because I know that the conversation now is, how do we get more young people involved who don't have resources? They don't have the luxury dollars that are needed to play sports like soccer in our country. So, that's the good and the bad, right? There are opportunities, but there aren't equal opportunities. There's talent everywhere, but opportunity is not equal. So we need to somehow find a way to balance those scales so that we can have an even greater population of people that are enjoying the game, whether for fans, as a coach, as a player, and so that we can continue to grow the NWSL and every other soccer outlet possible.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think equal opportunity is huge. And I think the next biggest hurdle as an entirety of soccer in this country specifically that we need to take a step over. And then I think what you said, access to it doesn't mean success. You can see all the people doing the skills on Instagram, you can go watch all the games, but if you're not willing to work and put in the time, then you're never going to be successful. It's not just going to come, which I think, again, I completely agree with. And specifically with you, I read that there was no women's soccer team to play on. Like you're talking about, you went to the library and got a VHS and 3 soccer books, which I think is maybe the best little anecdote I've gotten out of this podcast yet. And that's how you learned soccer. What made you interested in the first place in soccer?
No idea.
Really? You were just like,
no, this is how it happened.
It was meant to be.
Yeah, this is how it happened. I was basically a lunatic as a child. And so I would, if it was, climb up to the tallest tree and get on the roof and jump into the pool, or do set up 2 chairs and put a 2x4 across it and ride my skateboard up and jump off of it and land on the other side. It didn't matter. Falling down seemed to be my thing.
Okay. And
I was just very physical and active, and I loved being outside. And I think what happened was that that girls soccer came to my neighborhood, young girls soccer. And then, so we signed up, not knowing anything about it. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing that I remember that kind of struck me as a kid was, unlike today, well, maybe at some levels, maybe at a AYSO level, where, everybody's on the team. You sign up, you get on a team. You got your uniform right then. You got your uniform. And so I took it home, and it was like, I put it on, and it was like this transformation, right? I turned into something else. It was like this superpower. Yeah. And I didn't want to ever take it off. And so that's always stuck with me. And actually into my professional and into my national team career, unlike what happens now with the national team, where, you show up and you have all your stuff there in the locker room. That was not the case. So we would get our stuff at the hotel, and we would carry it, or we would put it on the bus ride to the stadium. And I always waited for the moment once I entered the locker room to put on my gear, because that was the moment when the change kind of happened. If people say, "Hey, are you superstitious?" I say no, but this is what I definitely did every time. So, but yeah, so I think that, that initial signing up and getting the jersey, and then having that soccer ball for the first time, it was love at first kick. And that's kind of silly and cheesy, but really true. I don't know why, but I think it was because there was access to be on a team. Mm-hmm. I didn't have that before. And then the chance to just get as dirty and be as physical. And honestly, I was a terrible teammate, because I just wanted the ball and I didn't really care about anybody else's feelings. And I was like, I would probably take it away from my own teammate if, So it was just a chance to kind of run in a wild yet semi-organized way. And it hooked me.
Mm. Did you only play soccer after that, or did you play a ton of sports? You sound like you played a ton.
I played anything and everything from street touch football to skateboarding to, I mean, honestly, if tree climbing was a sport, I probably would have done that at the time,
I
or
love it.
like just anything. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I've kind of been that girl who was like, I see a challenge or the ball goes onto the, I mean, this is just seriously, this is how crazy I am about just trying things, right? Like my son is in elementary school, lower elementary, and one of the kids kicks the ball onto the roof. And I literally climb the pole, I get up onto the roof, and everyone's like, what the hell? But I don't know. I just like, I see the challenge and I don't see an obstacle. I see an opportunity. That's always how I've looked at it.
I love it. So, as you grew up, and you obviously you said soccer was love at first kick. At what point did you realize that you could play in college? Because you kind of touched on Title IX. And what made it? It seems like soccer was it for you from the beginning, but again, you did a bunch of different sports. So, how did you end up at Cal playing soccer?
Well, much different than it is today, where the recruiting
Yeah,
process
I'm
happened
sure.
very, very late. So,
Okay.
number one, I didn't have, there was not a lot of conversation in my household about college. Neither of my parents went to college. And in fact, I think, and in fact, my mom was such an incredible role model and mentor to me, not by words so much, but by her actions. So she was of the generation where she had her dream job and she was a flight attendant. And this was like perfect for her. She was just so incredibly personable and engaging and just, again, not afraid to go out there and, be herself. And my dad went into the military right out of high school, and they decided they were going to have a family, and you couldn't be married and be a flight attendant. So she quit her job. And so to have a family. And so just her actions of going from being this woman who gave up a career to becoming a mother, being a teacher's aide. And as she progressed, she ended up without a college degree, becoming a vice president of a company in the Silicon Valley, working with the biggest tech giants before Silicon Valley was Silicon Valley. And she just walked the walk, right? So for me, it was, we weren't talking about college, but it was just like, how do you live your life? And then when college came up, it was like, oh, we should do that. We should do that. And it was my senior year, and Cal is about an hour away from where I grew up. And so we went there, and they were very interested. And my parents and my grandfather were just like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest gift ever. And there was something about it that I really was drawn to. And then there was also a part of me that kind of knew down deep, like it wasn't the right place, but I didn't know why. But I'm super grateful for having had the experience. I had a great first year as a player, and we had a really good team, and that experience was great. I did terribly in school, and I was like wandering around like I had found a whole new world, and it was incredible. And then I tore my ACL that spring, so it was the greatest of the greats and the lowest of the lows, and a really great way to dive down into what kind of person are you going to be.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
So like you said, you had a great freshman year. You were an All-American, but then you had ACL surgeries on both of your knees.
Yeah. So in the spring of my freshman year, I tore my left ACL. And as I decided that I would, as I said, I got into some academic issues. And so I left Cal
Okay.
to get things in order. And as I was doing that, I realized, well, I redshirt my second year because I wasn't going to be ready to play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is back when MRIs didn't even exist. I mean, that's how.
I mean, so yeah, like this is the late 80s. You tear your ACL.
Yeah.
What made you, and I kind of can assume the answer even just talking to you, knowing you as a player, like what made you be like, okay, I'm going to come back from this? Because it seems like, I mean, even today, knock on wood, ACLs are the worst injury, but I can't imagine what they were like back then. And you're saying there's not even MRI. How did they even know? They were just like this is not. You
they used to no. They used to do what I don't know the technical name of it, but they would inject your knee with a dye, and then the dye would go through, and and then they would take a picture, kind of like an X-ray.
Got it.
And then they could see where anything was interrupted by like a broken line, and that's how they would let you know. Okay. That's how they did those were the test. That was the test. But I think the answer to your question, honestly, is what's the alternative? Quit? Like that was, I mean, I loved playing. Mm-hmm. I love playing today. I wish I could play today. I love being on the field. Like there's nothing for me that fills that gap. Once I found this game in the way that I did, as I progressed through it, nothing has filled that gap that was created by that. And that can be hard at times, because when you're not right in the middle of it and you're watching it and you're like, oh, you want it so bad. But I think that was also at the time when I was on the sideline. And I say this to any young person who has experienced the loss of something, or, the temporary loss during an injury, which is you're going to be a better person and player after this, because there's nothing that you can learn while you're healthy about what it's like to not have something, and the journey that it takes to come back to it. Mm-hmm. And so it was terrible. I mean, honestly, who knows what would have happened in my career had I been healthy the whole time. Who knows what could have happened? I mean, it was pretty good. All the good stuff happened after all the bad stuff happened. So I think that's a great story.
Yeah.
As a reminder that, you're going to take some lumps along the way.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I think there was no question. It was just, you're going to get on with yourself and then do it. I think the second one was hard because I had decided to leave Cal, and I came home, and I was going to a junior college, which, by the way, is a fabulous option for a lot of people out there. And not just in an academic sense, but I think in the soccer sense too, because, everybody's looking for that scholarship, and please don't put that as the main reason why you're playing soccer. That's a recipe for disaster.
It's a great reason, but it's not, it shouldn't be your only reason.
Yeah. And so right as I was kind of starting to get healthy and back into like, okay, what's my next move going to be? And I decided that I'd be going to Santa Clara. A week later, I tore my other ACL.
Playing.
Oh
my God. So you had come back.
Yeah. So I was playing again, and
I hate talking about ACLs.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was predestined. Honestly, it was predestined, and so the only thing to do is, when you look at a problem, is to say define the solutions. Yeah. It's not why is there a problem. Maybe you could look at it and say, okay, maybe I need more sleep, maybe I need more, but it's not like you're going to change where you are. So. Yeah. So the second one was a little bit harder in terms of okay, you go through the why me? Why is this happening again? And then you get on with it, and you're like, okay, enough time spent on that, just moving forward.
For sure. And at this point, when these injuries occurred, was the national team on your radar?
So, like I said, there was no youth national teams, but there was youth national team camp. So I had gone to that as a young person before I went to college. And so I was kind of in this collective amoeba of people, right? So it was kind of like, it wasn't something that was really like defined and here's what you do and here's what's going to happen. But I was kind of in this group of young players.
But you had had a taste of the national team, you know, what, wearing the crest, that sort of thing. Was there even a crest back then? Like,
no. It was a logo.
Okay.
I think that's what we called it. Okay. Logo. No. It was kind of like what you experienced probably playing in ODP and then playing. We had something called the Olympic Sports Festival. Okay. That was a coming together of all 4 regions in a mimic of an Olympic Games. So all the sports were there and women's soccer was a part of it. And it was mostly adult, like end of college athletes, but I got invited to that. So that was when I was still in high school. So that was that was really the first time we went to, the first one I think was at LSU. And then the second one was, they were always in really hot, sticky places like San Antonio and LSU. So
sounds about right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you knew you were good, and then or at least you had a sense of what your potential, and you go through these 2 injuries. Like you said, in between the 2 of them, you had decided to transfer to Santa Clara. Mm-hmm. You recover, come back from your second one, and you end up going to back-to-back Final Four appearances for the first time in program history in 1990. And in 1990, you led the nation in scoring and won the Honda Sports Award as Player of the Year. Yeah. So talk about 2 ACL recoveries in the late 80s, early 90s, and then going on to do that to end your college career. Like, that's just that. I mean, talk about from the bottom of the valley to the top of the mountain.
Like I said, my dad was my first coach and he didn't know anything about soccer. He was a Marine. So what I learned about Marines they have a few things that are essential to their being, right? Which is one, your love of your family, your team, right? You're going to do anything for your team. And that you have to be dedicated to the process. And you don't question what's the process. You're going to go through the process. And we were very, learning kind of that process and that team love. And my dad, I just had incredibly wonderful memories from my youth soccer career. Which is, I shouldn't say career because it wasn't really a career.
It was part of the career.
Well, but I mean, like it was
a chapter.
It was just fun. It was just, it was my happy place. It was like, I played softball, I ran track, I played volleyball, basketball, like I said, flag football. Like I played all of the sports. My grandfather wanted me to be a golfer and my mother wanted me to be a tennis player. And neither one of those were dirty or physical enough for me, which now I'm like, damn, I should have been one of those things.
You should have, yeah.
But it worked out. It worked out. But I really love all those. But honestly, just having to decide to only play soccer was very difficult for me because somebody brought it to my attention when I was a junior in high school, like at the end of my junior year, like, well, what are you going to play in college? And I honestly had no idea what they were talking about. I was like,
what do you mean?
Yeah, I play soccer and I play softball in high school. I play them both. And they're like, well, you're going to have to choose. I was like, I have no idea why I would ever do that. I want to do both of them. And I honestly believe that because I played all those sports, Kelley, that I was a better, well-rounded soccer player.
Absolutely.
Than if I had just played soccer. And I see that in my young players because they are fabulous and really not good in a lot of areas because they just had the same kind of repetitive stuff. And so they don't get out of there, like, you know, balls in the air. They don't know how to catch things, and they don't know how to, their spatial awareness and how fast and slow, like, oh my gosh. Like, so I would say to everybody listening to this podcast, please, 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 you know, specificity is good when it's the appropriate time. But I think when we talk about cross training and we talk about balanced life, it's so important. But anyway, back to your sorry, I hijacked you for a minute there.
No, you're fine. I love it.
Yeah.
This is incredible. And like I love hearing you say these things because they resonate with me very much so. And I think that they need to be said, and I think people need to hear them. Every successful athlete and entrepreneur knows that setbacks, mistakes, and losses are all a part of becoming a champion. Like a great coach or teammate, WIS helps business leaders find the vision and strength they need to succeed. Whether it's international taxes or advice around staffing, mergers, and finance, WIS is ready to assist your company in its championship journey. As proud supporters of female entrepreneurs, WIS not only sponsors the Players Pod, but they also sponsor the Just Women Sports brand new Ballers Market, a first-of-its-kind online marketplace for female athlete entrepreneurs. You can check it out at justwomensports.com/ballers-marketplace. To further this mission, WIS is giving away an unreal prize package of Ballers Market gear and JWS swag. To enter the giveaway, tweet at both Just Women Sports at JustWSports and WIS at WISLLP with the name of a coach who has helped you succeed either on or off the field. And then head to WIS.com, that's WISS.com, to learn how WIS can help you turn a setback into a winning opportunity.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Dawn Staley, and I know you all have been hearing me talk about UFOs, but I wanted to really drive it home for you how much I love these recovery slippers, and I'm just so excited to share them with you. Believe me when I tell you, once you try these, you'll never wear another slide a day in your life, especially if you got knees and ankles like mine. But I'm not stopping. UFOs allows me to stay active, walking my boy Champ, working out, and of course, coaching. Each pair have this incredible technology and footbed that cradles your arches, and UFOs are developed with intention to reduce stress on the body and help you recover. And it works. Trust me on this. I know a lot of athletes who wear UFOs regularly and love them, but I also know a lot of nurses and teachers who use them. They're that good. Check them out at UFOs.com. That's OOFOS.com. They have a ton of different styles, but all with the same foam and footbed. They are seriously life-changing footwear.
For you, when you got, you go from 2 ACL surgeries, recoveries, and then you're basically at the top of women's soccer in the college world to end your college career. What was that like? And at that point, what was your relationship or like interaction with the national team? Were you getting called in? Because you had your first cap in 1988.
Right. Yeah. So because I came through this youth pool system, I was in that kind of group of players. And because I did have a really fortunate college experience, even amongst the unfortunate circumstances with being injured, I was in the pack of players. And so I did have a few games with the national team before getting hurt. And I don't know, I think I bulldozed my way into just being a part of it. Right. And, I was relentless. I felt like I was a relentless player, and not to say that it was just about being physical, because I don't want to diminish that there is obviously a physical investment you have to make. But I don't think that the outcomes that you get from the physical investment are just physical outcomes. You have to work on the small things. And so for me, that's what I really, really, really loved about, and still to this day love about the game. Like, the fun little moment when you've set the opponent up just so perfectly and they have no idea. And now all of a sudden you just take advantage of them and you're just like, I just did that to you. And you did, and now I'm doing it again. Or like, you're just like, like the look you can give a player from across the field and you're like, I got you. Like we're on the same page. Like those things, like they give me chills just talking about them, because that's like to me, the beauty of sport are those small moments. But getting on that. So anyway, I just feel like I had a good combination of a physical commitment, yet it was still not my strong suit. And I can tell you about that in a second. And my love of the small details, because I was 2-footed. I could use any part of my body. Like I was super comfortable with the ball because I literally only could play against a wall. So for me, it was like every touch mattered and every pass counted, and how it was done with what weight and what pace and at what space and in what time. Like that's the secret sauce, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I think initially in my early career with the national team, I mean, I think the greatest knock on me was that I wasn't more willing to invest in the physical fitness.
Interesting.
Because I'm going to say, like, I was good at soccer.
Yeah. And you were like, I can carry this. My skill can carry myself.
Yeah. I can
carry
do
me.
Yeah.
And I don't need to commit and invest, like you said, in the physical side.
Yeah. And it wasn't that I was, yes, correct. But I felt it was like an overemphasis on something that I was like, well, okay. Like that's like, I mean, honestly, I had a really big problem with that when I was growing up, and it was a mental hurdle for me when I was coming into college. And then when I had my first knee injury and coming back from those 2 knee injuries, it was like, that stuff is for the other players. This is what I do. And it was really, honestly, it was awesome for me to get knocked down, because I didn't value that work as much as I should have. And so it comes full circle. It's good.
Yeah. But hearing you say this is very surprising to me, because to me, Brandi Chastain is the ripped, like celebrating in her sports bra, being like, how will I ever be that strong? Like that. Yeah, exactly. It's incredible. So good. So to hear you say this, so it's clearly this was something that you knew you had to work on, and you did work on, because we all know what you looked like in 99.
But not initially, Kelley.
Yeah,
and this is,
but it takes time.
And this is also another, lesson, reminder to myself, and just word of warning to young players, not a word of warning, but like it's real, meaning you're going to be afraid. And for me, I honestly, the anticipation and the perception of what reality was, if I push myself to that moment where I was so uncomfortable that I wasn't sure what was going to happen on the other side, it was so heavy for me that I couldn't get past it.
Interesting.
I could not get past it. And I was ashamed of quitting, but I honestly didn't know how to get past it. And it took a long time. And what actually ended up happening was that at Santa Clara it was in my first year, kind of into the season, when I just wasn't working hard enough in that area. And my mindset was, it's for the other people to do that. My husband, Jerry, was the coach at Santa Clara. And he said, well, we don't really need you here. And I was like, well, I don't need you. And
great response.
So, yeah, touche. And so then he said, that's fine. And I walked away. And so for 2 days, I didn't go out to soccer. And then I had an epiphany of, you're an idiot, and this is the greatest gift that you've been given, and your parents could not afford to send you to college. So what are you doing? And so I had a real come to Jesus moment, really. And I came back to the soccer office with my tail between my legs, and I said, I've made a mistake, and I would appreciate a second opportunity. And without hesitation, it was okay, no problem. And we ran all day long. Like it was beyond what we had ever done. But I had sworn, and I think this is the competitor in me, and everybody out there has this person inside of them. It just, it's like the switch needs to be flipped. The button has to be pushed. We have to be so uncomfortable that what's the alternative is not, the alternative is not good. And my button got pushed, and it was, I'm going to show you that I can do this. Honestly, I should have just said, like, Brandi, you can do this for yourself. Do this. But
I feel like when you have those type of moments, it's usually an external source that gets you past that first biggest hurdle of your career, or your biggest setback, or your biggest weakness.
Yeah.
Don't you think? I feel like, because I completely agree with you. We all should be able to internally say, like, I want this, I should do this, and be motivated by that, which you probably are now, but you had to have that external source. And that is what allowed you later on to have that internal one.
Yeah, I think I was, to a certain degree, right? I had that motivation or that inspiration and that push to a certain point, but it was that small gray area that was the unknown that I was like, I'm pretty good right here. I'm pretty good. I don't want to dabble up there. Right here, I'm good. And when I got pushed and I felt like I was tipping over the edge, I was like, oh no, I'm not going there. And then all of a sudden that opportunity was taken away. And I was like, maybe it's not so bad up there. And
were you scared of the pain?
I was scared of not knowing, because you don't know how you're going to feel. You don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know the severity of the intensity. And so I think it's the unknown that really was, I felt in control most of the time otherwise. And so it was the losing the control. It was the lack of understanding. It was the lack of maybe even having been pushed before. And so when I came back, I was so determined, and I didn't see the back of anyone's shirt. I just ran like it was going to be the last time. And,
I love that.
And at the end of the day, I was like, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, it's true, because it's worth it, because it gets you to where you have to go.
Yeah.
Okay. 1991, you make it.
Yeah.
World Cup team. By the way, do you remember the official name of the 1999 World Cup? I'm doing air quotes.
Yes. Yes. The M&M's Cup.
Good job. Yeah, Cup. It was the first FIFA World Championship for women's football for the M&M's Cup.
Yeah. It's a very short name. FIFA didn't want to really put World Cup on it because I think they felt that maybe it would diminish the name World Cup. So they had to give it a try first.
It's incredible. I feel like I've heard this before, and when I was reading, I was like, I think that I remember the M&M's part of it, but the fact that FIFA didn't want it, it was, first of all, the first Women's World Cup, and they didn't want to just brand it as Women's World Cup.
Yeah, that was something amongst other things that FIFA has done. However, again, the paradigm is shifting, and the landscape is changing. And to be honest with you, Joy Fawcett was incredibly happy because she loved M&M's. So this was basically she lived on Diet Coke, M&M's, and chicken nuggets. So it was like for her.
Was it in China?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Guangzhou, China.
So you just had unlimited M&Ms.
Yeah. Fantastic.
But you guys win.
Yeah.
So what was that feeling like, winning the M&M's World Cup?
Oh, I mean, it was spectacular. It was spectacular. Really, it was like our team our parents.
Yeah.
It's a picture of all the parents in the stands.
Oh, that's amazing. So they came over.
Yeah.
There was a good group.
Yeah, it was an awesome group. And so it was us, our parents, and like maybe 10 people at home that knew that we were what we were doing. And we won this awesome tournament. And I think it was, I'd love to say that I had the vision that this would turn into what it's turned into today. But I think because the official, even the officials of FIFA didn't really embrace it so much. It was just another big tournament that we did.
Yeah.
But it was spectacular. And the competitors of China and Sweden and Norway and Brazil. I mean, playing Norway became like the best rivalry, and China, the best rivalry. And that's kind of, I think, what made playing on the national team so fun, is that you have these opportunities to play these games that you just don't know how they're going to go. And you fight like hell to win each game.
For sure. I still can't get over the fact that it was called the M&M's Cup, but in 1995, so it's the next one, they have, I think, officially called it, they're calling it the Women's World Cup at this point. You don't make the team.
Right.
What went into that? I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah. Well, the way you say it is the reason for the response, because it's not like I had an opportunity.
You didn't?
No.
Oh, so yeah. Tell me what was up.
So right after 91, there was a few players who were retiring. Karen Gabera now. She's now been the head women's coach at the Naval Academy for what she thought was going to be 1 year, which has turned into a lifetime career, which is amazing.
Great.
Yeah, it's incredible. Shannon, oh my gosh. Higgins was her maiden name, now Shannon Sorofsky. She also has been coaching collegiately for a long time. Lori Henry and some other players were retiring. And somehow I kind of got into that group and was just not asked to come back.
Interesting.
And so for a long time, I don't know how long that is. Like it felt like years, but it could have been months before I kind of reached out to say, hey, hello, like I'm still playing. I want to be there, but there was just no response. There was there was no meeting. There was no reasoning. There was nothing.
Did like something get lost in the mail because did somebody think you had retired? Like, what was it? That's wild to me.
No idea, honestly. Anson Dorrance was the coach at the time. And, as we all know, has such a historic career as the women's head coach at the University of North Carolina. And he was the national team coach for, so many years. And, he and we just had this kind of like wonderful friction relationship. Like,
I love how you just said that. Wonderful friction relationship.
Well, I mean, it was because, I honestly, again, like, I think, what I found is after learning about, going through all these hardships is like when things are easy, it doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean it's good. It just means it's easy.
That's such a great thing you just said. Sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no.
It's just so good. No, it's so true.
And so, I wasn't his favorite player. And I had decided not to go to North Carolina. And I went out there and everything. And I was a California kid and who knows what the reasons were, that I didn't get called back. Don't know. So after a while I wrote him this letter and I was so mad. And I was like, I was so mad at him. And I wrote a letter and I was very blunt. And he came back to me and he was like, this is one of the greatest letters I've ever received. because you didn't pull any punches. And I appreciate that. And that didn't get me back on the team, but
I was about to say, is that how you got back on?
No, it wasn't. But he and I actually came to this wonderful place where, where two people who maybe, diametrically are opposed to however they're looking at things, can actually come together with respect and resolve and say, okay, I appreciate that you had to make a decision, and that was your decision. I didn't like it, but I can understand it. And so when Tony then took over, Tony DeCicco took over right before 1995 World Cup, I felt like that was a chance for me maybe to get back into the swing of things. And I was then working full-time at Santa Clara as an assistant coach. And one of our players, Jennifer Lawler, was on the national team. And so it was hard. That was very hard. I was training with Jen, and she would go off to a training camp and I would not get called in. And Jerry was in a very precarious position because he was coaching Jen, and I had been a former player, and now I was working with him, and I was angry every day. And he was like, oh my God, like,
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it was not one of the best of times, but again, it was to kind of the storyline, which is like, okay, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? You don't like what's happening? Don't keep doing the same thing, because it's not going to get you somewhere. So I decided to go and play in Japan. And it was the beginning of when they had their professional league, and we didn't have anything here. This was in 93. And so Anson was like, why the hell are you going there? And I was like, I'm not playing for you. So why the hell are you, what does it matter to you? Like, I mean,
leave me alone.
Yeah. He was like,
unless you want to call me back in.
Yeah. But no, it was a good reminder. Like, why are you going there? And for me, the answer was I wanted to play. And it was the first opportunity to play and get paid. And I was like, this is going to be an awesome life experience. And so I went, and I called Tony and I said, hey, listen, I still want to play. I'm playing, I've been playing in Japan. And he's like, well, I'm happy with the team I have, and, knock on wood that nothing happens. But if something does, I'll give you a call. And that call never came. And that was hard. That was very hard. And yet I think, again, our stories aren't told by other people. Our stories are only told by ourselves, and we can make them what we want them to be. Doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect, or maybe the way we planned it. But I just kept believing and kept pushing in that direction. And when the team lost in the semifinal to Norway, which Julie Foudy would probably call one of the most devastating losses of her career, and something that I think she uses as a reminder of this will never happen again kind of mentality. That was the next door open for me, because the Olympics that you didn't get to go to because your parents didn't obviously think it was important.
We, for all the listeners out there, we talked about this before we started recording. Growing up in Atlanta, 96 Olympics, didn't go to one dang thing. Thank you, Mom and Dad. But yeah, okay. So you end up, they lose in the semis. Is that your entry back into the team? Because you end up going to the Olympics, and you played every minute of the tournament. Yeah.
So this was a very interesting time. This is foreshadowing, Kelley, to what actually happened this year. So history does repeat itself. What you hope is that it repeats itself in a better version, right?
Okay.
In a learned version. So the U.S. women's national team was in a contract negotiation with U.S. Soccer after 95. And I think because we didn't win the World Cup, U.S. Soccer wanted to give us less than what we had before. And Julie Foudy, Carla Overbeck, they were like, hell no, that's not how this works. Like, progress is being made. Yeah. Like, this is for real now. This is like not make believe. This is not like, hey, $10 a per diem is going to make it. That's not how this is going to go. And so that team decided that they were not going to go to the Olympics.
Oh, I remember. Okay. I know
they were not going to the Olympics. And right as that was happening, Tony, basically what they said is they gathered not just the full first team and the bubble players, but then the next pool of players. And we said, listen, collectively, we need to stand together. If we want things to be better, we must say no until it is better. Right. And we are going to give up the first ever Olympics.
Yeah,
and it's
incredible.
in our own country. It's in
Also
our own
incredible.
country.
Yeah.
It's the 100th year. It's the Centennial Games. Like this is like all these monumental things. Right. And so everybody was like, yes, 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 this is what we'll do. And then Tony called me.
Oh no.
And he said, hey, we talked about the World Cup and he said, I want to make some changes. I want you to come into camp. And my heart is like exploding out of my chest. And I'm so excited. And I said, well, I'll let you know.
Okay.
So I hung up the phone and I immediately called Julie and I said, I got a problem because I want to be on the national team, but I am 100% in solidarity with what's happening. Because I believe that we deserve better. And women's soccer has a really important place in U.S. soccer. We weren't thinking in this global thing. We were thinking in U.S. soccer, women's soccer has a very important place. We not only were we world champions, we had just, came in third place in the World Cup. We have not experienced that kind of success at U.S. soccer before. And so Julie said, no, you're going to camp.
Oh.
And you are going to get on this team because we need you. And I was like, no, I'm with you. She goes, nope, you got to go. And that was really one of the first times where I saw leadership in action in a very selfless, very altruistic way, where it wasn't about how did that impact me, but how can it impact the greater good? And I said, okay. And I made a promise. I said, I will be the best player I've ever been. And I will make this team. I'll do everything possible. And so that's when, after the two camps we had, Tony called me into his office and said, hey, we want you on the team. And I mean, Kelley, I don't know about when you made the first time, when you made it to the national team for the first time, what it felt like for you, but having been there and not been there and then come back, like it was just like exponentially out of this world.
Yeah.
Exciting. And then he said, but you're not going to play as a forward, which I had only played. Yeah. He said, we're going to put you as a defender. And it was like, what? Jaw drop, like everything. Like I'm sure all the air was sucked out of the room. But in that moment was an opportunity. Are you more prideful about who you think you are and what you can do, or do you want to be on the team and do you want to contribute? And for me, I knew what not being on the team was like. And so I wanted to be on the team. And so I said yes. And as you said, I played every minute of the Olympic Games in a position I'd never played before. And so that was, and it turned out, I didn't get to score as many goals as I probably would have liked. Yeah. Truth be told, I love scoring goals, but not having to play with your back to pressure, being able to see the whole field. I learned that my skill set, and this is kind of a lesson that I learned that's off the field and on the field, is that the skill set I had in my toolbox actually applied to the position I was going in. So for all those people out there who think they don't know something, or they're getting hired to do something that maybe they don't have a lot of experience in, pull out your tools, because those tools will apply. And so I saw everything coming at me as the forward I was. And I'm like, oh, I see this already. I got this.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Tony DeChico loves to change a forward to an outside back. Although he didn't do that for me, but I think he suggested it. And that's what got me into that same predicament as you. And I looked at it the exact same way of like, I want to be on this team. You want me to play outside back? Okay, I'll play outside back. In that 96 Olympics. So how did it resolve? with the CBA, and did everyone get to come back in and participate?
Yes. So we finally got it all sorted out, right? I think at the end of 95, and the whole team was together for the first trip we made to Brazil. First ever trip we went to Brazil with the national team in January. And then, everything just, that was a magical year. It was, being in the Olympics was different than being in the first world championship for women's soccer of the M&M's Cup,
sponsored by Candy.
So it was monumental. I think it was foreshadowing to the type of resiliency and the type of behavior that would need to be present to endure in this environment where women's sports collectively were not at the top of the mountain. And they weren't regarded as, when I say important, they were important, critically important to us, but not in the landscape or the fabric of sports culture.
Mm-hmm.
And by winning 96, all of a sudden you got validity in a space that most Americans would say is kind of like the holy grail of all athletics, right? You go to the Olympics.
Absolutely.
And now you're amongst the world's best. And we love our Olympic Games. And so I think that really gave us a shot in the arm that, we are important and that we have a voice. Yeah. And that led to 99.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think that just what you guys had to do collectively to stand up to US soccer, like you said, it's foreshadowing. It has happened so many times since then.
Oh, no, it happened many times.
But that was the first time. And kind of going back to you talking about the league and how, that the first one laid the foundation, the second one laid the foundation, the third one is surviving and, hopefully will thrive. You have to have, like, if you guys hadn't have done that, I don't know if we would be where we are today, which seems, there's so much time has gone on, but still the fact that you guys as a group understood your collective power and what you could achieve if you stuck together. I've seen it happen many times with the national team, and that is when we are our strongest, when we are together. So I just think it's interesting hearing that story about the calls going out, being like, you can't go into camp, that sort of thing. And people being willing to do that, to sacrifice and not think about themselves, but think about the greater good, not just the team. And again, you might not have been thinking about global landscape, but today it's something that we definitely think about. 99.
Yes.
Going into 99. Like, I mean, I've heard so many stories about 99, but how did you feel? Like, what were your thoughts? What was that like? Yeah, I feel like that's it, right?
Yeah, it was a lot of that. I think it was a lot of, there's a character in, like, I think it's Batman, a character called Two-Face. Okay. And so I think there was a lot of Two-Face going on, which is to say that on one side, we were telling everybody, we're having the World Cup. It's going to be in these giant stadiums. It's going to be amazing. We're going to do this thing. It's going to be incredible. And then we go over here and go, holy crap, are we going to do this? Like, we were like the, back in the old days, is like, we're the snake oil. We're like selling these potions and we're like hoping that magic happens. Yeah. We're hoping that magic happened. And we could say those things because we did believe it. Yeah. And we were working towards it, but nothing had compared even closely. I mean, 95, Sweden hosted a beautiful World Cup, but it was in small stadiums, like 5,000 to 10,000 seats, and in one little area. And so it was like awesome. That's not diminishing the fact that, what that was. But as we know, the 99 World Cup, to think about filling 40, 50, 75, 80, and 90,000 seat
90,000.
stadiums.
Yeah.
Like, who's been drinking? Like, are you kidding? Like, that's insane. So we were shaking hands, we were doing clinics, we were, hugging babies, we were doing everything necessary. I mean, literally, US Soccer was like trading on us for practice spaces, and we were playing college men's teams, and we were doing everything necessary and unlikely, things that hadn't been done before, but this hadn't been done before. So everything was just a free for all of what's going to happen. And luckily we had great leadership in Donna De Verona and Marla Messing. And, the team was incredible. Mia, at this time was like the face of US soccer, women's soccer and US soccer really. And she carried so much burden. And she was a perfect example of humility and grace. And I'm sure at times just scared to death, because all of a sudden you have all this attention and you don't know how it's going to go. You don't know.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it was great. I mean, great and scary and holy crap, amazing.
I can imagine. Going into the final, one, how were you feeling? And then two, when PKs came up, did you think you were going to be in the first five? Because, which I didn't know this, you had missed a PK earlier in the year, I think against China.
That's right.
In the Algarve Cup, which used to be a I think it still goes on, tournament that national team would go to every year earlier in the year. So what were those two things like?
Well, I think leading up to the final, the fact that I think playing in the quarterfinal is the scariest game, because if you don't win the quarterfinal, you go home and you have nothing to show for it, right? You get knocked out in that round and it's like, holy crap. And I tell it in this way, it's like, for us, the future of women's soccer was at stake. Yeah. Like, it was doom. It was like heavy cloud. All of the media, for the most part, were like, you have to win the World Cup or it's for naught. Nobody will remember. Nobody will care. The next day they'll be on to whatever season it is of, it's baseball or it's whatever,
Yeah.
And so there was this like, and we had been working on the psychology of preparing for a world championship. We had worked with Colleen Hacker leading up to through the Olympics. And so we had some practice in that, but boy, this was a real test. And I think the ability to be in the moment was so critical, and to not look at this game any differently. It was one game. It was one game. You're going to play one game. And it didn't start out well for me because I scored an own goal.
I know.
So that was bad.
That's pretty not great.
Pretty much.
Oh my God. Again, knock on wood. Worst nightmare.
And so, luckily I scored another goal in that game.
You did. Incredible.
I scored 2 goals.
Incredible.
I mean, not many players get to score 2 goals.
Exactly. On themselves and the other team.
Yeah. And so, it didn't start out well, but we got through the hardest game. And so I think then winning on the 4th of July, we played on the 4th of July up here at Stanford. And that was just a phenomenal day. Obviously, for me personally, growing up not too far away from there, that was remarkable. But it was just, it's one game at a time, one moment at a time. And so to your question about, what were you thinking about that day? when the bus pulled up, Kelley, I don't know if you know this, but when the bus pulled up, another game was happening. They don't do this anymore. So back in the day, the 3rd, 4th place game played before the final. So that was it was tied. So it would be going into penalty kicks. And so we didn't get to warm up on the field.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. So we literally, the Rose Bowl now has changed. They've made the locker rooms bigger, and things are not quite as old as they used to be, kind of in the underbelly of stadiums. They're not as fancy as the exterior part, right? And so we literally ran in circles. We turned the music up. We ran up and down the where the bus came down into the tunnel. And it was like, I'll never forget it. The dank, musty, mildewy smell of the tunnel of the Rose Bowl. But it couldn't have been any better. Like, honestly, I think this to me is our crowning moment, because everybody thinks from the outside, when you see a championship, you think, oh, it's so easy. It looks so easy. But it wasn't easy, of course, because all those teams were incredibly good. But even just in that day, you have to, okay, it's not the way hold on. It's not the way we thought it was going to be. So what do? You get on with it. You do what you can do. And because of that, I think our team was incredibly resilient and incredibly agile and flexible. And we didn't let these small little things that could unhinge other groups. It was like, done, moving on. So I think that was our superpower.
I agree.
Because to play China, they were good.
They were very good.
Yeah, they were so good. And I say that was a game of two teams that bent but never broke, because no one gave up a goal in that game. And it was literally the best and the hardest and the most psychological battle, I think, to that point we had ever played. And it was awesome. And so when it ended after 120 minutes in the 115-degree heat, which, by the way, I meet so many people even to this day that's like, I was at that game. I'm like, awesome. Like, after I asked them all the questions of where were you sitting and what did you think and who were you with and all those things. Yeah. And I said, yeah, I heard that they ran out of water. They go, yeah, it was so hot. I'm like, yeah, I didn't get water either.
Exactly.
I didn't get water either. They're like, oh my God, it was so hot. I'm like, I know.
It was hot for me too.
I feel your pain. Yeah, I feel your pain. So to the second question about the penalty kicks, is I thought I would take one, because in the run of play, if there had been a penalty kick awarded, myself and Michelle were the designated kickers.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. And so Brianna Scurry knocked Michelle out of the game with a swift punch and on a cross. And so I assumed, I shouldn't have, but I assumed that I would take one. And so when Lauren Gray came up to me, she said, hey, do you want to take a kick? I kind of was taken aback and I said, yeah, I did. Sure. Of course. She's like, okay. So, she's taking notes. And then Tony comes over and he says, okay, so you're going to take a kick? I said, yeah, I talked to Lauren. He goes, okay, great. You're going to take it with your left foot. And then he like ran away like the road runner, dust, and just sprinted. And I was like, and I didn't really spend too much time thinking about it. Okay. But now that I get to think about it, and I have thought about it now for 20 something years, I've never taken a penalty with my left foot in a game. This is the World Cup final. Yeah. And I try to relate all these moments to what's the lesson. And for me, the lesson that I extract from that moment was, number one, Tony brought me back to the national team. I had to work hard to get there, and he brought me back, and he believed and saw something in me. He put me in a position I'd never been in before. And he believed that I would be successful in that position. And he helped me, and the team helped me be successful in that moment. And when he asked me to do something that I'd never done before, I had to trust him, because he had already shown that he was trustworthy and that he saw something in me maybe that I didn't see. And that because of that, I should feel elevated. And I think that goes to now the type of tough coach that I am today. Tony was very player oriented. He, when he brought me back to the team and when he engaged in the team, it was always like, I value you, but I'm going to challenge you. I'm not always going to agree with you, but I want the best for you. And so, I just let the little kid in me take over. Like, what would you do on a Sunday afternoon when you're playing with your friends? You're going to freaking put it right past them. And
with
then you're
your
going
left foot that you've never done before.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you're going to do.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. Well, we all know what happens next, and that's you score the final penalty kick, and the US has won the World Cup on US soil in front of maybe the biggest crowd that I'd ever watched women's soccer at that point. And rip your shirt off, rip the jersey off, celebrate, in my opinion, one of the most iconic images in sports ever. Do you even remember that moment? Like, did you black out? What was that?
Yeah, it was very fast. Number one, it happened so fast. Like,
it did. If you watch it in real
fast.
time, it is so interesting. Yeah, because it does happen so fast.
So
it's
fast.
So good. It's so good.
I've been asked this question so many times.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And it's a great question, because every time I get to reflect on it, I feel like with the time now away from it, it gets deeper, right? It gets like more contemplative, and it gets slightly more understood. But it's also from different lenses for me, right? So now I'm a parent, but I'm also a grandparent, and I see my little granddaughters, and I just got a video yesterday of my granddaughter in the backyard, 2 dribbles and a shot, goal, she says, right? And I'm thinking, that's what it was. It was honestly this moment of, it's like I got tingling all over. Like it's the moment that you conjure up when you're a little kid and you're playing on the playground and you're counting down, and whether it's a basket you shoot or the last goal or the touchdown or the home run, and you're trotting the bases, it's just that pure joy. And there's like you can't explain it. Like, it's like, I would say it's every single emotion, every single moment, every single hour, minute, second, every person, whoever I crossed paths with, whether it was on the field or off the field, that showed some kind of compassion or involvement or investment in me. All that was like one big gratitude to, owed to all of those people, and to having that moment. And some people will say, well, oh, maybe you saw it from men's soccer, and perhaps maybe subconsciously it was there. Like, this is what soccer players do, because I never saw myself different than my male counterparts. Luckily, that was never the case for me. Like, I didn't have to feel that. But honestly, it was just like, I've always loved sports. I've always loved being in that moment and scoring and winning and being challenged. And that's the joy that it should elicit.
Yeah.
And it was just untamable at that moment.
Yeah, no, I know. And I get, again, like, that image to me is, when I was a kid and I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that is what the top elite, that is what the mountaintop looks like. Like, in the emotion, in your physical form, like, everything about it, I was just like, damn, that's like, could I ever do that? Could that ever, could I ever look like that? Could I ever feel those emotions, And it's just, to me, it's just so crazy, again, that I'm sitting here talking to you about it. I wish that I could go back in time and tell my 12-year-old self, or 11-year-old self, I'm getting to do this. But again, one of my most favorite sports pictures in the history of sports. I'm taking up a lot of your time. I would take up like 2 more hours if I could, but a couple questions in closing. Our sponsors at WIS know that mentorship is key to building a more inclusive and positive SUM world, and that a great coach or mentor can make all the difference in somebody's career. Who has been the biggest influence in your life?
Well, I already said my dad, so that's
Yeah.
already known. I would say Jerry Smith, my husband now at Santa Clara, because he approached coaching women's soccer in a very in a very detail oriented, specific way that had never been presented to me. I don't know how I learned soccer, Kelley, honestly, because I didn't really have anybody. I watched it. Right. And now all of a sudden I had somebody presenting me these moments with such great detail that all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, like there's layers to this thing.
Yeah.
So I have to give a tremendous amount of props out to my husband, and I watch him coach his Santa Clara University women's teams, and I watch these players evolve over 4 to 5 years, and I see them just grow their game physically, but in their intellectually. I think it was the intellectual side of soccer that he knows so well that was just not valued and was never presented to me. So in that way, it's phenomenal. And even in the coaches that maybe I didn't get along with, like the Ansons or, my high school coach, we were very successful. And I just, they came at me with a different approach, and it was uncomfortable, but it was good. So every single person, like I learned things from my players. I learned things from my coaches. Greatness lies within everybody, and you just have to be willing and ready to receive it. And if you are, then you get the benefit of that goodness. So
I feel like you just answered what my second question.
Oh, because I have mental telepathy.
You do. Yeah. You've got it all, Brandi. You've got it all.
I see the play coming, Kelley.
I know. You do. You're 5 steps ahead of me. What do you tell the younger athletes who want to follow in your footsteps?
Be your best self. Bring your best self every day. And the only person, I would tell them a million things, but honestly, I think be your best self. If you are super excited, don't hide that. If you are contemplative and you're analytical, don't hide that. Bring your best self and be open to learning and, again, to falling down. Because and laugh at yourself, because good. Honestly, we're too serious.
We are too serious.
We're too serious.
It's not that serious. It's a game. One that I want to win every single time, but
yes. When it's not that serious, like if you're not enjoying it, you will never get out of it what you want, because you'll be too caught up in the things that don't matter the most.
Yeah.
And in anything, and especially in soccer, it's such a flow game. It's such a in the moment. I think right now coaches are trying to be so, the formation. And I'm like, I want to coach the women's national team. That's my dream.
Really?
I want to be a part of the U.S. women's national team program. I want to be in the youth program. I want to give back what I've been given. And the things that I want to give back are, I don't know all the answers. I don't know them all, but what I do have some experience with is understanding moments and reading moments and being ready for moments. And as things are going forward in a match, I know how to manipulate that moment and change the dynamic and change the pace. And I'm not going to do it the same way every time. And so for me, it's like, okay, kids, go out there and be your best selves. Common denominator, working hard. Everybody works hard. That's not a characteristic anymore. That's not a bring your hard work. Okay. That's like to me, someone who's like, doesn't understand how to improve. You're going to work hard. Of course. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
So have fun.
Bring your best self.
Bring your best self and have fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
And
use your left foot, for Christ's sakes. Don't I tell my kids this every time. Sorry, I have to say this. If you're not willing to try the most uncomfortable thing in practice, you're not going to try it in the game, and you're going to miss the one moment that is going to it's going to turn the game on its head. And you're going to be so bummed because you're not going to get that moment back. And you're going to say, I wish I had. Don't go into something saying, I wish I had. Saying, so I did. I tried it. I did. I totally screwed it up. It was awesome. Do that. That's better.
I love it. I agree. Totally agree. Yeah. Okay. Quick hit questions to end.
Okay. Perfect.
Finish this sentence. If I wasn't involved in soccer, I would be
a dog trainer.
Good. Fair enough. Okay. Love it. That's the first dog trainer we've gotten on this pod. Yes. Okay. Brandi, how do you take your coffee?
I don't drink coffee. Can you tell? I'm naturally caffeinated.
Wow. I mean, I can tell. And that's incredible. Good for you. I've been drinking coffee this whole time. Who's your favorite player to watch in the NWSL today?
Oh, this is tricky. This is tricky because as hopefully a part of an ownership group that's going to be involved in the NWSL, I don't want to give away all my secrets. But I like a lot of the new young players. I'm very encouraged and excited about the new group of young players.
Love it. Fair enough. We'll leave it to a generation.
Okay.
Who's your pick to win the title this year?
Oh,
there's only one right answer here.
I know you want me to say your team because I listened to your conversation with Jill Ellis. I think right now, I think OL Reign is like probably would have the most points in terms of like people leaning that way because of it has a little bit more experience, but I like a good dark horse. I'm always in for a dark horse, to be honest with you. Right, and you're now the champion, so it's not easy to win 2 years in a row.
I know.
Which
makes it even more interesting and exciting.
I don't deny that. I don't deny it.
Okay, we'll give you Reign, and that gives me more motivation to smash them. Okay, last question to end this pod. Where is the penalty kick sports bra today? Is it back there?
Yeah, it's right there. Is there a glare? There might be a glare on it.
Oh, I see it. Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
Its life used to be in my drawer. And then when my pile got down and I was bad at laundry, I would wear it.
My gosh.
And then I thought I probably shouldn't do that. And so then I donated it to a museum in New York.
Okay.
And that was like around the 2008 when we had that massive crash and the US was having a tough financial time. And it got that museum went bankrupt and all of the items in it got put into these containers and shipped to New Jersey. And it took me a year to get it back.
Oh my gosh. I'd be terrified.
Yeah. And then when I got it back, I thought I should put it in a frame and
so it wasn't even framed.
Well,
they probably took it out of the frame and like put it somewhere.
Yeah.
Wow. Can you bring it up? To the camera? Is that possible?
Yeah. My office manager wants to say hello. Is that okay?
I see his tail.
Come here. Come on, Ray. This is my girl, Ray.
Oh, hi, Ray.
Yeah, hi, Ray. You're my inspiration for dog trainer. Okay, hold on.
I was about to say, yeah.
Just a second.
I mean, like, it's everything. It's so good. It's incredible. That's amazing. Brandi, I just want to say thank you. We took up so much of your time. This has been incredible. Again, pinch me moment. You are an absolute inspiration. I cannot wait for people to listen to this. Thank you again for the time. Like, I just took so much from this and gave me so much inspiration, even for like going to training tomorrow. Truly.
Let's do 2.0 sometime.
Yes. We need to, because we didn't get to a lot of things, but you're the best. Thank you.
All the best, Kelley.
Appreciate you. The Players Pod wouldn't be possible without our partners at WIS. WIS helps entrepreneurs and business leaders fulfill their potential by turning temporary roadblocks into long-term wins. No matter your business needs, WIS is ready to team up and take your company to the next level. So head to WIS.com to learn more about how they can help your business on its championship journey. That's WISS.com to find the teammates you need to accelerate your dreams and achieve your business goals today.